And so the Spring Carnival continues, and so does Tipster. Well, I'm here with Mick Gannon. Mick's over there. How are you, Mick?
Mate, I'm doing very well. How are you, Damo?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Geez, hey, it's hotting up. What a weekend last weekend. Highlight for me, Mick, had to be the Incentivise Very Elegant duel, which didn't really turn out to be a duel. This is, I mean, just looking at Incentivise come through the classes, now finds itself in probably some of the best races in the world, you'd have to say, and just showing itself to be an amazing animal. What are your thoughts, mate?
Good horse, mate, and wherever it goes next, it's probably going to be winning. Very Elegant was a bit flat there, so I'm sure she's got a bit better in her than that. But I was wrong. I was very much in camp Very Elegant with the the runs on the board, but wrong. And Incentivise looks like a very good horse. I noticed that they paid up for the Cox Plate. I can't imagine they'll go there, but if they do, they'll probably go close. But there are some good European overseas horses coming into that race as well. So Caulfield Cup, you'd imagine, and it'd be very, very hard to beat. But you don't have to be a genius to work that one out.
Yeah, hey, it's exciting stuff. I think we're going to be in for some cracking racing over the next 4 weeks, whatever way you look at it. This weekend, Zaki, I think I saw quotes around $1.35, almost becoming another Winx type discussion. Not saying it's the Winx level, but certainly you're starting to see that sort of character come through, aren't we?
Mate, without a doubt, good horse. Wasn't that impressive when I won last start, to be fair. I thought it could have done a better job, but it was a small field. Be interested to see how it goes this week. I don't think I'll be chiming into $1.30. I wouldn't anyway. I don't think I wouldn't chime at $1.30 Winx. But yeah, no, can't take $1.30, please.
Well, one for the mug multis, eh?
One for the mug multis. Biso will have a field day with you. He'll be laying it, Biso. You watch.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be in Biso's lay somehow, but anyhow, he'd be a very courageous man if he's doing that. I'm sure he's going to let that.
I hope he does. Gee, I hope he does. I'll be with him.
Well, as you know, I mean, this is the show where you find out whose horse racing tips are firing. I mean, at thegreattipoff.com, every tipster you can think of, and if we don't have them, tell us. They're on the site with stats to burn. We've been capturing since 2009, so there's certainly you're going to find out who's flying. So in this show this week, we're going to look at the tipsters of the month in September. We're going to look at the top 5, and we're also going to look at the top 5 media tipsters. Then we're going to tipster in focus this week, Mick. Mr. Ron Dufficy. Has to be one of the hardest working form analysts, commentators around. We're just doing a bit of research for the show and sort of thought of 3 or 4 things that he's involved with over Sky, and I only had half of them. So he's and look, a great chat there as well. And rounding it out, we're continuing on with our how do you punt. Last week we had Bookie's Big Bets. Do you back them? This week we're looking at track bias. So there's a topic, Mick.
Love it, mate. Love a bit of track bias.
Yeah, so Mick's going to give us his view. Actually, it's interesting because Ronnie actually touched on it as well, Ron Dufficy. So, look, there's some interesting stuff. Don't think Ron likes being called Ronnie, by the way, so I should just leave it at Ron. Anyhow, great show ahead. As always, Mick, what do we do to know when this show drops?
Mate, pretty easy. Subscribe, hit those alerts, get them firing in. Not only will you get alerts for this show, you have to listen to Damo and I crap on, you also get to listen to Dean Watling and I steer you into a few winners on a Monday. So we've got all-in show drops on Tuesday morning. We film that Monday night. Some huge overs already we've found for this week. If you haven't caught it, do yourself a favour, jump on and catch it. We're also giving away, Dean and I chimed in there, 10% giveaway to our all-in tickets. So check that one out, punters.
Yeah, there's something, and I should mention that. And also, too, mixed mail during the week. So there's midweek tips, a great reason to subscribe. Buttons below. Hang around for the rest of the show. So it's come to that time of the month, Mick, where we look at last month and see who absolutely caned it. We look at the top 5, and then we sort of cut the top 5 media tipsters as well. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. And here we go. The top 5, as you see them right now, that's actually the top 5 overall leaderboard. And you'll note, firstly, that it's all made up of punters. So it looks like the punters, I know a few months ago, Mick, we were doing the punters versus the media. So punters are certainly singing the song. And at the top there, we've got VacantLot. He's a bit of an overseas punter, actually. Does well in the overseas boat. One for the night owls, if you're looking for someone to follow. Kudukiat, I think I've pronounced that properly. WA punter. Another WA punter. What's going on here? Look at some of these average prices there. Roughy Kings for sure, if you're looking for someone who knows how to tip roughies. We've got Clueless. Haystack5 there was a tipster of the month earlier in the year. Continue on his good form. Again, massive average prices. There's not many days I think they're missing putting tips in some of these lads, but hey, why wouldn't you if you're finding winners like this? And Josh Shields, we saw him last week. He pops up top 5 tipster of the month. Spoke to him again this week, and he mentioned that sectional data is now coming into his analysis more. Mick, sectional data, how much do you put that to work in your analysis, mate?
Very little, to be fair, simply because I'm pretty time poor. But look, it does play a big part in a lot of form analyst work. But yeah, for mine, it's probably weighted a little lower. There will be times where I will have a look, but for mine, it's not great, but some people do a great job of it. Obviously, it's working really well for Josh. So that's probably the most important lesson there. Just because one person's doing it doesn't mean you have to do it, but it is working well for Josh. So keep at it, mate. That's awesome.
Yeah, if it works for you, don't change it.
Spot on.
So now just shooting over to the media top 5. Again, didn't make the overall top 5, but still some great performances here, whatever. And Mitch Manners, he's at the top there. Sky Racing caller. Good guy, Mitch. It was pretty chuffed, actually, when we put out a preliminary tipster of the month on Twitter, and certainly met it with some pretty happy reactions there. Chris Blackwell, he has been flying all year. We showed that last episode, and he just obviously had a massive September. Adam Crenton, another race caller. So this is his whole thing. Race callers certainly know how to tip. They're seeing the same horses go around. He's with RSN. Chris Nelson. Mick, you reckon that voodoo's hanging around that Chris was worried about?
Mate, you stopped a few freight trains in your time, but you haven't stopped Chris yet. So good stuff.
Yeah, there we go. Thanks for that, mate. And of course, Ron Dufficy, our tipster in focus this week. He's actually 5 weeks, and it's interesting because we have to cut these numbers off at some point. But he's actually pretty much going to be 6 weeks in a row. But when we cut the numbers at the time, he was at 5 weeks. He's absolutely flying, and we'll learn a bit more about Ron in a sec.
Yeah, watch out, Ron. David might stop you as well.
So, punters, as we alluded to at the start of the show, at the open of the show, our tipster in focus this week is, look, I call him an icon of racing. Probably one of the hardest workers in the industry when you look at what he does. He shot the lights out at Randwick last week. He's on as I said, it's a 5 week when we cut the numbers, but probably actually getting on the 6 week now winning streak. Top 5 media tipsters in September. Mick, what do you reckon? We'll have a chat to him, ask him how he does it, and I'm sure we're going to learn some very interesting things.
Let's do it, mate.
Well, punters, we've got a cracker today. You're about to hear from one of the icons of racing. You've heard him, you've seen him. Sky Racing, Sky Thoroughbred Central, Formline. Saturday mornings doing the preview before the big races. We've probably missed half a dozen. Punters Post-Mortem, Daily Telegraph tipping. I'm sure there's many, many more. Finished top 5 in September, and furthermore, 5 profit weeks in a row. What a great time to talk to none other than Ron Dufficy. How are you, Ron?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Damien.
That's the way, mate. How exciting is it at the moment with the big carnival on, eh?
Oh, outstanding. We've got this Everest coming up in the carnival time and some big races to follow through. And obviously Australia-wide, there's some great racing. And in fact, can't wait for some more people to get onto the track there on Everest Day in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, certainly. I think we're all looking forward to that one, Ron. And of course, you're probably one of the luckier ones who gets to see the horse flesh up close every week. But there's a lot of punters out there waiting to join you out there, mate. Look, obviously in cracking form, as I said, one of the icons in the industry. We just thought we'd start punters are probably very interested with that form line behind you, mate, to understand what goes into your approach for form analysis. Obviously, you're doing a lot of it. What's the story there, Ron?
Yeah, look, I'm a little bit old school. I like to sort of pull each horse apart and start on Mondays, where I'll probably rip apart the highway, which horses I don't really know a lot about. So I like to get that one away on nomination stage and just refresh my memory with a few of those country races. And I'll have a look at mainly most of the first uppers on Monday, looking at their trials and refreshing my memory. I haven't got a big database where I can push buttons and get ratings and all that. I think a lot of people subscribe to that, and there's some great young judges around that do that these days. But I think sometimes we all land on the same horse if we've got the same form tools.
Yeah.
So I like to identify horses' patterns. I love to look at speed maps. I love to look at racing patterns, and as far as the previous runs, if there's any bias, if you can identify bias, you can back a lot of winners that are over the odds.
Yeah, look, that's it's an important theme actually in our show this week too, that we're looking at track bias. So it's interesting to hear that comes into play for you, Ron. Look, we've seen the likes of Alf Matthews, Laurie Olsen, obviously A-list jockeys like yourself, who are very good form analysts, and you're following that tradition. Does your experience as a elite jockey give you any benefits at all when you do the form? And if so, what might they be, Ron?
Yeah, firstly, I want to correct you with the elite jockey. Obviously, not very old. Wouldn't have seen some of my rides. I think I still hold the record for the slaughter of the day in my time. But I was an average jockey who got a little bit lucky now and again. So, look,
there's some black types in there, Ron. We can go to the stats on all the sites, mate.
Yeah. Look, I think it's a little bit of an advantage. Some jockeys have got no interest in form, really. But I've just gained an interest throughout my career. Look, my father was an SP bookmaker. They can't arrest him now; he's dead. So I learnt all about form through betting from the time I could walk and talk. And obviously, it's been in the family all the way through. I've had a love of doing the form, and that continued on after my riding days. And I was lucky enough to get a job and continue on and get a job that I love.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, we share something there. My dad was an SP bookie too. He's passed out, so they can't get him. So it sounds like there's a bit of a trail there. Hey, look, we're coming up to a cracking weekend of racing. There's obviously ones that are going to follow it, but the Spring Champion Stakes Day, we've got the Caulfield Guineas in Melbourne. I know it's early, Ron. It's a bit of a tough question, I suppose, with these all-in markets out at the moment. We'll probably see the fields come out a bit later today. Anything catching your eye for the big weekend coming?
Yeah, before the fields and maps and all that sort of thing, just looking at the doing a little bit of form in preparation for these final fields coming out. So we talk about bias, and you have to go back to September 18, and that's been proven. We've never been kissed making a run at being caught wide. You had Think It Over, who come out and won. You had Private Eye and Arameo coming down the outside, and you also had Masked Crusader coming down the outside, and even from the midweek, Suave was out wide at that meeting and didn't run a place, and they've all come out and really excelled. So that's been proven, that bias. It's not perceived bias anymore. Yep. So I think looking at a few horses out of that meeting that did a similar sort of thing, I'd have to say Amaralina. Even though she ran second last, she made her run down the middle. It was too short for her. It was too wet for her. I know she's got to carry the penalty on Saturday of 59, but up in distance, dry track, she wasn't right in the coat the other day. I think she's a massive improver. Others I could mention to you, Akahiro, he's a 25-1 chance in the Stan Fox. Yeah. But he only comes out of a midway 72, but I thought his run against that bias was amazing. So he's a really good place chance. I'm not saying I'm going to tip him, and I mightn't even tip him a place, but looking at that price, I couldn't mark him that long. And there's one more there, it'd be Equation in the Silver Eagle. He was a red-hot favourite that day, and he just the bias was just completely against him. The SP profile's there, so he might be big odds in the Silver Eagle.
There we have it. So there's 3 horses to keep your eye on there. Certainly sounds like there's a bit of value amongst them too, Ron. So I'm sure the punters are going to be very grateful to get that info ahead of time. Look, mate, you've got such a busy schedule there. We really thank you for taking some time out to speak to the punters on our show, Tipster. Look, all the best for the carnival, Ron. I'm sure you're going to have a cracker, mate. And look, hopefully we get to see you out there at the course before it's over, mate.
Let's hope so. Keep up the good work.
Good on you, Ron. And continuing on with our How Do You Punt series, we've got a pretty controversial one this week, I think. Track bias. Now, I suppose punters sometimes use it as an excuse to explain why their horse that didn't win. But there's no doubt. Look, I know, Mick, a couple of weeks ago, mate, you put something on Twitter. I think it was the Rose Hill meet there. And you put a rocket up the inside rail and sort of something that indicated it was a bit slower outside those lanes. And you were
couple of canoes, mate.
What's that, mate?
Couple of canoes down the outside.
Couple canoes down the outside. So certainly there's no doubt that Mick Gannon is someone who believes in track bias. So before we hand over to the punters, I want to ask you the question, Mick. Track bias, does it exist? And if it does, tell us a bit about what are the tips for punters? How do you actually use it? Let's then throw over to the punters.
Awesome. Well, pretty obvious it exists, right? So don't get me started. But let's have a little chat about maybe how we can assess it. And there's probably two ways you can use track bias. One is assessing it on the run and what we're going to do with it during the meeting. And the other one is obviously a review version of it. And we're seeing a pattern that's emerging, which Dino and I touched on Monday, about a Randwick meeting where the runners that were back and wide really struggled to run on. And since then, they've come through that meeting and really produced some great results. We'll see a bit more of that on Saturday. And Ronnie also touched on it earlier in the interview. But if we're betting on the run, probably more importantly, some of the best punters in the history of the game, and from memory, I think it was Stewie Davidson, where I learned this from, was watching a video somewhere, he suggested that waiting out the first 1, 2, 3 races and getting a good eye for the track was everything. It allowed those big boys to be able to chime in with confidence. Now, look, if there's no bias, obvious, fine, great, play on as you were going. But really getting an early feel for that. The next thing is obviously, let's just say the most easiest one to describe would be if we just got an obvious on-pace bias there and not looking for a $2 shot winning. I'm talking if something's at a $7, $8, $9, $10 mark and they're leading and they're kicking and they're still there in the finish and they have no right to be. That's pretty obvious, right? So using that information, make a decision. How do you make the decision? Well, you've got to do your speed maps, right? Be aware of what jockey is capable. Some jockeys aren't capable of going, they just don't have that instinct to go hard. So just be careful. Don't hope that a jockey is going to go forward and be aggressive. Look for those aggressive jockeys like a Nash Rawiller, Josh Parr, Tim Clark. They're the kind of guys that are going to be really aggressive. They ride well. And then make bet accordingly.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, look, the thing that always gets me, that's certainly something I do. I like to sort of, chip down the first few races till you get a bit of a feel for what's going on, or even hold out, might get through some of the gardening before I get to the races, race screen. I mean, the question I've got though, Mick, is look, you might see if some runners come down the outside and assume the outside lanes are quicker. How do you know that it's just not been a fast pace? They've got a nice cart, or, look, at the end of the day, they're just going better. What if it's just even and they're going better? And that's why, and as a result, they're a back marker and they've had to come down the outside. I mean, do we assume very quickly that it is track bias when it's potentially just other factors playing out?
Yeah, the data out there is great, and interesting when you mentioned about sectional data. In reviewing sectional data, it's not something I necessarily look at, but during the meeting, you look at those early sectionals, and on the top right or top left on racing.com or on Sky in those Sydney and Melbourne races. So you can see how fast they've gone, and just by using that, like if they're running 12s, over 1,400, 1,200 meters, like, they're going slow, right? So if they've gone out like in the Congo did, and it was flying and kept going, there's obvious some bias there, but it's just a good horse as well. So just check those sectionals out, work out what's fast, what's slow, and they're going to be a pretty good indicator as to how the track's playing.
All right, well, so there we go, punters. There's certainly a view that track bias is the play. We heard Ron Dufficy earlier. Certainly, I think his words were actually, there's no doubt there was track bias. We've had Mick Gannon here putting a case forward for track bias. Does track bias exist? And look, if it does, how do you go about taking it into consideration when you take into consideration all the other form variables and you pile them together? We want to hear from you. It's all about your thoughts, not just ours. So post wherever you're watching this, Twitter, YouTube, or Facebook. We're really interested to hear what you got to say. We'll respond, and all thoughts are valuable. So whether or not others agree or disagree, that's what it's about. Mick, thanks for that one. We'll see how things pan out this weekend with regards to track bias.
Thanks, mate. Look forward to it.
So wraps up another episode of Tipster, of course. The punters won September. Who wins October? Mick, of course, horse racing tips on our site. We've got leaderboards left, right, and centre. You can see who is going well in October or any other week, month, or period. And Mick, look, we always tell these guys to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We talk about it in terms of the Tipster show and all the little segments around that. More reasons now, right? So what are you doing at the start of the week, which they'll get alerted for when they subscribe to our YouTube channel?
Across spring, Dean Watling, myself covering pretty much all the all-in markets there. We covered 5 races the first week. We've got 10 races this week. We found 3 or 5 winners. Well, Dino did the first week, and no doubt we'll find plenty of winners this coming Saturday as well. So we definitely found plenty of early values. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But definitely check that out. We also have some free best bets information that comes out on Wednesdays as well.
Okay, so all you've got to do is click the button below where you're watching this on YouTube, and you'll subscribe, and then you'll get a notification, so you don't have to go scurrying around. There's links on our site to the show. You'll see us on Twitter, Facebook as well. So like all those pages. Punters, what can we say? What a great weekend of racing. We've got the Caulfield Guineas. We've got the Spring Champion Stakes, amongst a whole bunch of other races. I'm leaving out all the black type races. It's just quality. Enjoy yourselves. Hopefully we get out to the track soon. I think Everest, we've got 5,000 people out there. Who knows after that? Enjoy yourself, Mick. Good luck this weekend, and thanks for another great episode.
Thanks, mate. Are you interested in a Mick's Moral, or are you just going to shot his arms that one, mate?
Hey, Mick's Moral. What a shocker. That's a shocker.
Hello. Right. So we're going to head to Randwick, race 4, number 2, Coastwatch. It's also entered for the Guineas, but I do note that JMac is booked. So surprised that JMac has been booked, and I'd be surprised if it goes down there. I thought it was going to be a huge show in the Guineas, given the barrier draws to the 2 favourites. So I am shocked if it does say in Sydney. If it does say in Sydney, it's going to win. It's only paying $2.30. It'll win. If it doesn't, on the show, if it doesn't go there, of course, in our all-in show, I actually tipped Akihiro around the $7 the place in the same race. That price is probably gone. You probably get around $4 for the place. But even with Coastwatch there, I still think it's a great bet. But if Coastwatch isn't there, I could even bring myself to back that each way. So there you go. We'll definitely be betting in that race.
All right. So Coastwatch on top if it's running, Mick.
Absolutely. And Akihiro will take its place.
Fantastic. There we go. There's a blooper for people to mull over. But we got there anyhow. So all the usual stuff about subscribing and so forth. Mick's Morals there. Punters, have a great week. Mick, see you next week.
See you next week.
All right. See you, punters.